Chapter 220, Nightmare. Auror attacked me. The words echoed in Lumien's ears, crashing through his mind like a burst dam. A surge of memories flooded in, washing away the hidden horrors buried beneath the surface. They were ghastly, painful, and pierced his very bones. One by one, scenes played out before Lumien's eyes. Guillaume Bainet, the padre, encircled by a horde of undead figures in the wilderness. Madame Pualis soaring through the air with her wings spread wide. And there, in her eyes, Lumien caught a glimpse of a familiar blonde figure. It was Auror. Lumien's gaze shifted to the castle's third-floor walls, covered in translucent faces of bluish-white hue. He witnessed Louis Lund giving birth, Sybil Barry being reborn within the body of a lady's maid, Guillaume Bainet, Pierre Barry, Pons Bainet, and a group of believers of inevitability engaged in a fierce battle against the midwife, Administrator Bayast, and their companions. All of this unfolded within Lumien's own visions, emanating from a small bubble floating in the air. White paper. White paper. Lumien's face contorted in agony as he staggered backward. Bluish-purple veins, densely packed, protruded from his body, each representing a blood vessel. Meanwhile, the words of psychiatrist Susie flashed through his mind. Always remind yourself not to overreact. Whenever you feel a similar surge of emotions, take deep breaths and find your calm. Lumien gasped heavily, feeling as though the world around him had turned into a vacuum. In an act of sympathy, Madame Pualis spoke, "You have indeed forgotten many things. No, you've buried them deep in your heart, afraid to confront them. I, too, suffered. It was not pleasant for me. After becoming a banshee, it was the first time I encountered a woman who truly touched my heart. She possessed charm, kindness, gentleness, and a vibrant spirit. I never imagined that she, as a follower of the evil god, would turn against me. Even then, she was already a fate appropriator, favored by inevitability more than Guillaume Bainet." Lumien couldn't help but bring his hands to his head, as if it might explode from the intense pressure within. Taking deep breaths, he recalled Auror, who brushed off his concerns about the village's peculiarities. He remembered her cautioning him against laying eyes on forbidden things. He thought of Auror, who would often sit on the roof at night, gazing at the vastness of the cosmos. The dream of the diaphanous lizard crawling out of Auror's mouth resurfaced in his mind. He remembered how Nazali and the others, the initiators of the horoscope heresy, had close ties to Auror. Amidst these recollections, Lumien also recalled his failure to avenge Riamund and Ava's deaths, discovering himself captured by Pons Bainet instead. He endured torment before finally being set free. He recalled Auror, who had cut the liver blue and assembled a plea for help together with him. He remembered Auror explaining the mystical knowledge she possessed. And above all, he remembered Auror pushing him off the altar during the ritual, her eyes flickering with a newfound liveliness. Huff, huff, Lumien gasped heavily, as if still trapped in the clutches of a never-ending nightmare. A soft sigh escaped Madame Pualis's lips. "I should have noticed her strangeness sooner. Although we didn't often cross paths, I always sensed something peculiar about her. The way she would gaze up at the night sky, speaking cryptic words about her hometown. In the realm of mysticism, the cosmos can be a treacherous place, especially for beyonders. Later on, I wished for her to embrace the Great Mother's teachings, but alas, it was too late." Lumien's trembling lips struggled to form the question. When did she start behaving strangely? He had a vivid recollection of Auror's habit of stargazing and reminiscing about her homeland, but there had been no signs of trouble in the early years. Granted, Lumien acknowledged that Auror had been fixated on the cosmos more frequently over the past year, but he couldn't pinpoint the exact moment when it all began. Madame Pualis shook her head, suppressing her emotions, and spoke with a hint of amusement. "That's a question you must answer for yourself. You spend every day with her, whereas I do not. Sometimes I envy you deeply. Yet, at other times, I believe you have your own merits. Why should we be bound by the rules of a conventional society, denying ourselves the freedom and joys of life?" Lumien seemed lost in his own thoughts, barely registering Madame Pualis's words. He continued to hunch over, pressing his head against the carriage floor. Muttering to himself, he questioned, who led her to embrace inevitability? Perhaps only she knows the answer. Unfortunately, Madame Pualis sighed once more. Lumion fell into silence, taking deep breaths to steady himself. Once, twice, thrice, time seemed to blur as he wrestled with his thoughts. Finally, he straightened his posture, lowered his hands, and turned his gaze towards Madame Pualis. Have you ever encountered an elf-like creature, resembling a lizard in the village? No, Madame Pualis shook her head. The diaphanous lizard from my dream was merely a symbol. Did it represent the influence of inevitability, or did it actually exist, concealed deep within reality? Lumion pondered incessantly, as if this were the only way to prevent the razor-sharp blades from piercing his shattered heart. He posed a new question. Have you ever come across the legend of the warlock, the one about 9 bulls being the only ones capable of pulling the coffin? No, Madame Pualis replied once more, shaking her head. Lumion continued to inquire, one question after another. Eventually, he lost track of what he was asking and whether Madame Pualis had even responded. In his mind, her face became hazy, as though she were standing dozens or hundreds of meters away. At some undetermined point, the 4-wheeled carriage came to a halt. Lumion found himself back on the roadside, moving forward without purpose or destination. Clang, clang, clang. The cathedral bell tolled, signaling midnight. Suddenly, Lumion snapped out of his daze, realizing he had returned to the Auberge du Coq d'Oreille. Almost instinctively, he ascended the steps and prepared to push open the door. But after a few seconds of shock, he retreated back onto the street, wandering towards the end of Rue Anarchy like a lost soul. He walked until he reached Avenue du Marché. The sky, perpetually gloomy throughout the night, now became shrouded in thick, dark clouds. There was no crimson moon or stars to be seen. Finally, Lumion arrived at the entrance of Salle de Bal Brise, where a cacophony of voices and the rhythmic beat of drums emanated, creating an unusually vibrant atmosphere. Feeling overwhelmed by the environment, he abruptly spun around, staggering to the side of the road. Finding a spot in the shadow, far away from the nearest gas street lamp, he sat on the ground. Pitter-patter. As time ticked by, raindrops began to fall, landing on the ground, his head, and before him. The raindrops grew stronger, creating a steady patter. Lumion remained motionless, as if he had transformed into a statue, allowing the rain to soak his hair, face, and clothes. Suddenly, a shadow appeared above him, and the raindrops vanished. Confused, Lumion looked up and saw a dark blue umbrella, its metal frame supporting the fabric, held by Jenna. He averted his gaze, staring blankly at the middle of the road where mist had started to rise. He made no effort to stop Jenna, nor acknowledged her presence. Jenna, wearing heavy smoky makeup and a sequined, low-cut red dress, draped a lightly colored shawl with sizable holes over her shoulders to conceal some of her skin. She observed Lumion for a few seconds, refraining from asking any questions. Standing beside him, she held the umbrella aloft. The heavy rain persisted for an entire hour before gradually subsiding. Only scattered droplets now dripped from the buildings on either side and the street lamps. Lumion rose slowly, as if he had lost something. Jenna folded her umbrella and muttered, her voice barely audible. The rain will cease eventually, just as darkness always gives way. The sun is destined to rise, and its light will surely illuminate the earth. Lumion remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the darkened road ahead. How would you feel when you discover that someone you trust isn't who you thought they were? Jenna didn't respond directly. Instead, she countered with a question of her own, do you still trust him? Lumion pursed his lips, his answer unwavering, yes. If you still trust him, then find out why he did it, Jenna advised, her tone calm. Lumion's hands trembled slightly as he took a series of deep breaths. Eventually, his body returned to normal and he turned to face Jenna. Why are you here? Jenna's reply carried both frustration and amusement. Damn it, this is just outside Salle de Bal Brise. I didn't need to go to the theater tonight, so I came here to sing and make some cash. When I stepped out, I spotted you sitting by the roadside, completely drenched. Lumion averted his gaze and began walking forward, his expression devoid of emotion. He splashed through puddles, striding toward Rue des Blouses Blanches. Where are you going? Jenna asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Lumion responded without looking back, to find out the reason. He recalled Auror's words when she pushed him away from the altar. My grimoires. Considering the current circumstances, Lumion suspected that his sister was trying to convey that he could uncover clues about the source of the abnormality within her grimoires. Jenna followed Lumion, holding the umbrella, and probed, Do you think you can find the reason in just one night? Perhaps it will take a long time, Lumion impatiently replied. Jenna muttered under her breath, Then why are you in such a hurry? Rest and clear your mind. It might help you uncover the reason more quickly. Lumion contemplated his limited understanding of the grimoire's contents and his lack of mystical knowledge. He fell into silence. Once again he turned to Jenna. Is Franca at home? Why do you ask? Jenna appeared perplexed. She probably won't return to Rue des Blouses Blanches today. She mentioned wanting to spend a pleasant evening with Gardener Martin. Lumion exhaled and redirected his steps toward Rue Anarchy.